as we come down the Ullman Straight. Yes, he is much closer.
Very, very close behind, under 0.2 of a second. That's going to come down to under 1/10 of a second if he decides to go for the move. He's going to think about it. A little bit of a Pruitt fade there from Krasowski as they go down into sunset.
Doesn't completely cover it off, though, and Fujita is through. He is our new leader coming off the final turn, but I don't know that he can hold it because Krasowski gets a great launch off the corner. He goes off to the right-hand side as Kazuki once again defends behind them. Olivier giving watch, and he's going to take advantage of it. He's going to try and poke his nose through to take second place off the hands of Daniel. It's not done yet. It carries on down into 3.
It keeps going here. Olivier trying to be later on the binders, and he's going to shut the door. That is Dominic Olivier up into P2. Krasowski demoted in 3 corners, 2 positions. Abner Acosta worked in on the high lane there on Josh Daniels to see if he's got anything. They're going to come out of the corner. Noah's Ark here, 2x2, and a big checkup. But here comes Josh Daniels thinking about making this 3 wide.
3 wide, and he absolutely sends it in deep. O'Brien tries to as well, but it's the high line that counts for the 28. No, it doesn't. It bites him. He falls backwards. Now the 77 back forward. And look at this. We didn't even account for Acosta. Acosta stuck through all of them, and he is going to manage to get up to 3rd potentially here. Sending it deep into 1. He's got it. Coming down into Sunset Bend, he's going to have to go around the outside. Pavolano, we've seen his defense before. He knows how to do this, but can he do it against Kwok? No, maybe not, because Kwok carries speed and just finds a gap around the outside. That'll give him the inside coming into turn 1. The job isn't completely done. He could maybe see an over-under from Michael as he takes it wide into the first turn.
Yeah, I think you're right. Looking as we set up, trying to come through here, we're on board with Raymond Day, looking around, trying to find a way to get through these guys, taking a look as they both defend deep onto the inside, holding enough ground to not make contact with the power down, and just making it around number 87, Peter Newhook. Oh, little contact there too. Little contact.
Little bit of contact, a little bit of off track there for Raymond Day, but he's able to keep everything gathered up back under him. But he's going to be a little bit compromised here as he tries to get by Peter Newhook going down into Verth. They are really trying to hold on to this here, working their way, and they're still side by side.
Oh, Raymond Day doing the best he can in a disadvantaged line, trying to come down into here. Look at that, just getting his nose ahead, holding on to that position on the outside.
Here comes Andy.
Seems to like that exit of that corner. The car handles it well. Aggressive defensive move from Gernot Frisha, almost pushing him off into the grass, but he's given just enough space, and a lot of wheel spin there from Frisha. Unfortunately, that puts him slow out of the horseshoe, side by side, coming up in an NASCAR bend. Mikko Lino trying to do it the hard way around, and he's got it.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced SimRacing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-Box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do send all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware, and that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsport history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single breathtaking turn. Now the Triple Apexer not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change, in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them?
From the beautiful pictures, we go to the story of the race. Ever since round 2 of the series, we've seen Jonathan Wager up the ante. He's been on an absolute tear this season, conquering racetracks in 3 continents, from the Styrian Mountains via Australian coast to the palm-lined streets of Florida. Will he continue his winning ways at the Arden foothills? And how about this? The Ferrari Challenge, where Tommy Brisson's light shines ever brighter on the mirrors of Eric Luke. Will the championship lead change here at Imola? We'll find out as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Precision Racing League GT Amateur Series. You can enjoy all the action live here on Global Sim Racing channel. Hello, my name is Ossian Puhakka, and I'll be joined in the commentary by Kenny Kibbe. Keeping it all together is our director Jack Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by Doug Beard. First up, it's one of the most iconic combinations in motorsport, Ferraris at Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari. We just saw the GSRC track guide, but Kenny, could you care tell us more about how it is to race here at Imola?
Thanks, Ozzy. So this track is a very fast track, not as fast as it used to be with the added chicanes at Tamburello and Villeneuve, but very quick nonetheless. And this is Ferrari's home track, so this is a big event for this Ferrari Challenge Series. You have a few passing zones down like in Ravazza in turn 14, also in Piratella in turn 8, but you also have some blinding corners that are going to be really challenging under the brakes, like turn 10 and also turn 11. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of curb hopping at this place as well. Your driver's going to have to watch out for getting too many incidents out there, but I'm excited. This is a very high-speed, high-intensity place.
It is that indeed. Thank you, Kenny, very much for that. And don't forget that our broadcast is brought to you by ASR, owned and operated by passionate SimRacers. Advanced sim racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. Visit them at advancedsimracing.com. That is advancedsimracing.com.
Tonight's broadcast is also sponsored by RaceLab. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills with modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration. You can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. That's racelab.app.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. That is with a T, so thebuttkicker.com.
And finally, the PRL GT Am Series is brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, back testing, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com, that's NinjaTrader.com, to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Okay, so let's see how the championship has unfolded so far. At the Ferrari Challenge, with the drivers, we have Eric Luke in the lead, as we mentioned earlier, only 1 point ahead of Tommy Brisson. Dave Peterson rounding out the top 3 with Baron Glover in 4th place and Roy Brown tied with him in 5th. And Kenny, I believe you do have the team standings for us.
So the team standings for this one, Eric's Merry Band of Morons with 286 points leads the way. Team Beef is 68 points back. Also tied with VHR Racing, 68 points back. 4th place is Improper Racing Team at 75 back. And finally in 5th is Eagle Vision Racing, 104 points back.
Indeed, and the race details for the Ferrari Challenge will be as follows. 35-minute race, so that is 5 minutes over half an hour with a fixed setup, so nobody will have an advantage. Every car is exactly identical from each and every part apart from the livery. That will change. You get a drive-through penalty at 13 incidents. You get disqualified at 17 incidents, so don't be too naughty or you'll get more than coal. And 1 bonus point for the fastest lap of the race, as well as the pole position, and 3 incidents or less, so it pays to be clean here in this series. And speaking of things clean and speaking of setups, make sure go and check out the Majors Garage, home of free baseline plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more at majorsgarage.com. Or use our special discount code Majors GSRC, that's all written together, Majors GSRC for 10% off. We have a link in the description below that directly applies our special offer. Now, we are just following the qualifying, jumping in. We'll see times coming up here on the board. You mentioned a couple of things about Imola earlier. Now, what I have written down in my notes, Kenny, is that don't hit the curbs. That's my own reminder for myself. That's what I remember from Imola. But you can ride them a little bit. You said curb hopping. We're seeing it on the screens as well. You can ride the curbs just a little bit, but beware. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, you can ride the curbs a little bit. You will notice at this place, you'll see the red and white curbs, but in some corners you'll also see some little humps or little turtles, if you will, on the inside of those. You kind of want to stay away from those. They start to upset the car a bit. And again, you can use them, but you also need to be aware of using too much runoff or too much curb could get you into some incident point trouble. Yeah, there's some of the turtles right there as we whiz past them with Tommy Brisson there. But yeah, you can use up some curb, and I think it's going to be needed in order to make time, but you do need to be careful because you can play with fire when it comes to hitting curbs.
Oh, very much so, very much so. It's looking good so far with Tommy Brisson. So he is exiting Variante Alta, coming down the hill towards Rivazza, the double left. So you got a 90-degree left, then a short little bit of a chute, as the Americans like to call it, a little bit of straight, and then you come into another 90 left and onto the main straight where the exit will be absolutely critical. Hold it down to the inside here and on towards the line. He's got a 1:43.253 to beat his own fastest time. Can he do it? Here's the finish line right here, and no, he does not. He is 1.5 tenths slower on his second lap around, so that's going to be Tommy Brisson still holding on to the provisional pole position with a 1:43.2, but we'll see what this man can do next. We are following his caramel striped car. It's got that I wonder if those are 13 stripes in total that Roy Brown with Team Beef got in his car. Nonetheless, he's got a hamburger and he is on a fast food delivery here, Kenny.
Yeah, he sure is. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with his lap times here. Remember, these drivers get 4 laps that they can take for qualifying, but they only have 10 minutes to do it. So if you haven't gotten out of the pits yet, you better, because you won't get to make all 4 of your laps if you don't leave the pits right away. We saw Brisson has done 2 of his laps. He's on his 3rd. Roy Brown looks to be, I think, on his 1st lap. So a few drivers have not posted a time yet. Roy Brown actually now up to 3rd place with a 1:43.770. So he's put down a decently fast time. That was his 1st lap. It looks like actually his 1st lap may have been disallowed. So you get any X's, your time's not necessarily going to count in qualifying. Another thing to keep in mind.
Yep, and you can get those X's really easily. So for those new to iRacing, as Eric Luke has taken the provisional pole position, by the way, I don't think I mentioned that earlier, so he is holding on to his championship lead and trying to extend it by 1 point here as we're watching Roy Brown. So you can get excess incident points, as we call it, by going off the track. If you go more than 2 wheels off the track, generally, it changes a little bit, or go to the grass entirely, that gives you an incident point. In the race, that's just 1 incident point, so that doesn't matter too much. Remember, 13 incident points is a drive-through penalty and 17 is a disqualification, but in qualifying it will invalidate your lap. And this is more relevant on the oval side of things, but also on the road side, if you get a 0x, and you can get a 0x by any contact, any light contact. For example, if you brush the wall a little bit, you get a 0x contact, and that will also invalidate your lap. So you have to be not only clean and precise, but also fast in order to make it really count in the qualifying. And I remember back in the olden days, you used to also get contact penalties sometimes if you take a curb too hard, and it counts as a hit, so you have to be careful with those. But in these days with the Ferraris, I don't see that being too much of an issue, as Roy Brown makes his way up into position number 3. It is relatively tight, Kenny, at the top. You're looking at Luke and Brisson and Brown, and they're all within 164 thousandths of a second, or milliseconds, whichever you prefer. So despite the length of this circuit, this is not a short circuit, it's not a short lap, it's over 100 seconds, but they are all relatively closely bunched around each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's, partially a product of what you're going to get with the fixed setup and everybody driving the same car with the same setup as well. We're not using multiple different GT3 cars in this series. It's all just the Ferrari, but also, relatively similar skill level, which is part of the reason why our championship battle is so tight as well. So these drivers coming in here, putting down some good laps, but they're all pretty tight knit together. So I expect the race to be pretty close, at least for the first half of the race, at least until we start getting into pit stops, which that'll be a whole nother animal.
Oh, indeed so. Eric Luke coming very close to his fastest lap, but not able to best it on his last time around. And we have 40 seconds left in the qualifying, so this will be the last lap. It's a solo qualifying, so you will have to finish your lap by the time the clock runs out, unlike in open qualifying, where you can, as long as you've started your lap, you're able to still finish it, even if the clock runs out in the middle of it. Jacob Kruger is going to be one of the last drivers to set down a qualifying time. He's at 1:44.1 rounded up at this moment, sitting at 11th place, so he'll trying to get into the 143s, possibly elevate his start position, but that's not going to be it, Jacob. That's going to be 145, and that means he'll be starting on the 11th place on the grid. And that also concludes our qualifying session for round number 6 of the series, and that means we'll go down to the starting grid. PRL Ferrari Challenge Fixed Series here on Tuesday nights. It's been an exciting series, and it's gonna provide even more excitement here tonight. Eric Luke gonna be starting on the pole position. Alongside him, it is Tommy Brisson, so the championship leaders also in the front row. Roy Brown gonna be starting behind them in position number 3 with Rafael Bofill in 4th place. Blake Seed is gonna be 5th with Pim Luth in 6th place. Leif Helbert in 7th and Mark File in 8th. Peter Lee is gonna be starting 9th, and rounding out the top 10 will be Dave Peterson.
11th place belongs to Jacob Kruger next to Matthew Plante in 12th. Dan Bowden will be in 13th, starting next to Charles Sumner. Baron Glover starts 15th next to Brian Hoskins in 16th. Ryan Burdick takes the 17th spot next to Larry Krupp in 18th. And rounding out the top 20 is Glenn Vanko and Danny Flagioli.
Yep, there are going to be a couple of more drivers here in the starting grid, with Sean Keeley in 21st, Eric Evans in 22nd, David Herbert in 23rd, and Oliver Hartley in 24th place. So those are going to be the guys who are working from the outside looking in. They're going to be trying to make their way up throughout the course of this race, but 24 drivers. It is a reasonably sized GT grid, and it should provide plenty of excitement out here today. It's a rolling start, so that's going to mean that the leaders, the pole sitter, is going to get a significant advantage heading into turn number 1 as the Porsche pace car heads off, and we are on our short little pace lap here, just half a lap coming down to Tamburello, and 10 will be underway. Kenny Gibby, I'm going to throw it to you for some last-minute predictions. Will we get through turn number 1 unscathed?
Well, one big factor is the first chicane we're going to get to is very narrow, and so most cars are going to need to sort it out. Somebody may need to back out of it in order to go in single file. You can get away with double file, but we'll have to see. Guys will really have to hit their marks if they decide to go into that first chicane 2x2, but here we go.
Yep, here we go. It's gonna be Luke, and alongside him it will be Brisson, and Eric Luke is underway, and here we go. Round number 6 of the Precision Racing League Ferrari Challenge Fixed is underway, heading into turn number 1. Eric Luke, Tommy Brisson, and Roy Brown. The front 3 is unchanged as we expected, but will we get through clean from Tamburello, a place that is known to be hazardous throughout generations? It looks very clean and very good so far. They turn left and then into the short straight down to Villeneuve chicane, and after that it will be Tosa. Couple of moves here on the midfield. It's gonna be potential change of position. Helberg gets ahead of Luth and will steal that 6th position away from him, and it's still very close knit. Oh, and a couple of cars off at the back. We'll get back to that later. We have some drivers here who have been involved in an incident, and I think that's going to be Pim Luth, one of the drivers involved in that one, who started, mind you, in 6th place. He had a very good starting position, but he is now all the way to the back. So the driver who is also 6th in the championship standings is going to have a hill to climb, and it's a mighty steep hill indeed, comparable to that of Pikes Peak or maybe Mount Washington. Eric Luke, Tommy Brisson, and Roy Brown still your top 3, heading towards Variante Alta here on lap number 1, taking the turn nicely. The car's going to be understeering a little bit at this point, but you still can't give any leeway. But look at Eric Luke, Kenny. Look at the way he's been able to get away. He's been absolutely on it ever since the start of this lap, and he wants to break the toe as early as possible.
For sure, there's definitely a toe here, especially down the front stretch, and he's had a very good opening lap for this one. But going back to that original accident, Matthew Plante and it looked like Pim, they both had a Pim Luth, they had a kind of a synchronized spin together. They were able to continue. Later on in the lap, though, another collision was caused. David Hebert had spun and gotten smashed into on the back portion of the course. But yeah, so Eric Luke has had a very clinical first lap here and has pulled out over a second lead just in one lap, and that's going to be good for him. Now he can focus forward, he can just focus on hitting his marks, and also the driver in second place, Tommy Brisson, has some pressure behind with Roy Brown. So, you know, Tommy's not only looking forward, but he's got to deal with a driver in his back mirror too, and that can sometimes play with your lap times when you're not able to fully focus forward.
And that's the point where in a race you usually make sort of a solemn agreement, in your own mind at least. You don't really talk to other drivers throughout the course of this race, but you make some sort of agreements where sometimes you want to cooperate with another driver. Like Brisson will be hoping that Brown won't be challenging him too hard, and they can instead work together to try and catch up the race leader Eric Luke, and they want to fight for the win instead. But here we go, we're gonna get some replays of that lap number 1 incident between Luth and Plenty. And Kenny, you're on.
Yeah, so it looked like it was just a slow, lazy spin kind of deal, where he just I think maybe hit the curb and just got his car a little upset. You see the second car coming in there, did the exact same thing, and you know, luckily no harm, no foul. But yeah, you see there, cold tires might have been an attributing factor to that. Cars just don't quite have the grip on the first lap that they will on the second, third, and onward. But yeah, I think, you know, just a lazy spin probably from a lack. And there is the second incident there with Hebert. He spun across, and I believe that was Luth, or Planty didn't have anywhere to go. Planty ended up hitting him. Again, probably the same factor. Cold tires just leading to a lack of grip. And once these cars get sideways, it's really hard to bring them back.
And poor Plenty, he was involved in 2 separate collisions within the span of like 3 corners. He was first involved at Villeneuve, and then he was involved in the Piratella as well. And that teal and eggplant colored car, which reminds me personally of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks hockey jerseys from the 90s, and a guy known as Teemu Selänne. Let's not go into hockey here, but yeah, those are going to be bringing up some good memories, even for a Minnesota Wild fan. And here we see some battles. Oh, and we have a spinner, and I believe that's Roy Brown. That is Roy Brown out of the track, and he's dropped all the way from the podium into 9th place. At the latter part of Agua Minerale, he went off, and he's gonna have a tough time now getting those tires back. Remember, they're gonna be scorching hot. After you spun, you heat up those tires, you're gonna have absolutely no grip for the next couple of corners. And he's got Bowden, he's got Sumner, he's got Glover. All those guys right up on his tailpipe, looking to make that overtake on the main straight. So we'll have to wait and see how Roy Brown recovers from that. But that is surely some drama. He is as unlucky as another driver who is known for, or another character who is known for having a car number 313. That is Donald Duck, of course. But here we see a replay.
Yeah, it looks like what he did is he straddled the curb and the grass, and if you get too far onto the grass, these cars really lose grip. Wow. It's kind of the same with all of the road cars. So he kind of straddled it, and it just took him right around. I've been a victim of that one myself plenty of times, and really a good save by Brown, not going too far into the gravel, able to get it going relatively quickly. Didn't lose too many spots. He's down to 10th place. He's definitely got the speed to make up some spots, but you know, now he had the hot tires like what you were saying, Ozzy, but he's also got traffic. He's going to have a lot more dirty air to deal with. Might have to use some creative pit strategy now to possibly leapfrog some of these guys. But yeah, it's going to be a tough road ahead for him now.
Yeah, and Zidi made a little bit of a mistake exiting Tosa. And Zidi has, we just heard, Zidi has a black flag as well, probably from all the incidents, so he will have to take a stop and go, and that means it's gonna be an easy position for Roy Brown. But how much time does he lose on this lap, just sitting behind Zidi, who is losing a little bit of time to Peterson now? So that AstroTurf, on the outside of the corners. You see the green stuff outside of the curbs. That is deceptively slippery. Like, it's exceptionally slippery. So once under braking, all the weight's gonna go to the front of the car, and the back end's gonna be light anyway. If you put one side of the car, like your left tires, like what happened to Brown, you put your left side tires onto the AstroTurf under braking, it's gonna be around in a hurry, and here is Zidi making his taking his drive-through penalty, so he's gonna be pretty much at the back of the pack after this one is over. But yeah, let's hope that Brown can recover from this, because I was trying to mention it, Kenny, about how Brown has been steadily improving throughout the course of this season. He's been up and up and up in the points. He's now sitting in 5th place, and how he was sitting on the grasping at the podium here at Imola as well. He was at a very good pace, and now he had a setback, and we'll see how that setback affects the rest of his race. Now, the good thing is that the setback happened early, so he still has time if he has the pace to make up positions, but I don't see him getting back up to the podium. Maybe 5th or 6th if he's good.
Yeah, I mean, he's nearly 10 seconds behind the leader already as it is, but I think that's probably a fair assessment. Around a top 5 would be a good goal for him, which is still a solid finish, but you got to think about that with the points, and not only the driver points, but the team points as well. But the one good thing is he did get a free spot there with Zidi having to go in and pit for his penalty. He's got a little bit of clean track in front of him, but you know, you see the gaggle of cars up ahead of him for 8th on up. It's going to be a tall order, and we'll see how aggressive he decides to be and how anxious he's going to be, knowing there's already 10 minutes gone in this thing, and he's dropped 6 spots from where he started.
Yeah, you have to have that mix of aggression and precision, in that if you do have the pace, you have to work and find out the optimal passing position. Here at Imola, the obvious one is going to be down the main straight, inside into turn number 1 at Tamburella, and then just hold it around the outside and get the position done before Villeneuve. But you've raced a couple of times, Sir Kenny. You have some solid knowledge around this track as well as this car. So as we are watching one of the VR drivers with the proud Maple Leaf flag on the background, so that's gonna be interesting to follow his progress. But yeah, Kenny, here at Imola with the Ferrari, do you have any other favorite passing positions? Any places where you could possibly try for a move outside of the main straight?
Well, you do have the main straight, but that's, you know, it is kind of risky. But my favorite place to pass is probably down into turn 14 with Rivazza, as we're riding on board with Kruger here. Another decent passing spot right up here at the top of this hill. The only issue is that it's kind of a blind approach, and once you get over top of the hill, that's basically when you need to start braking. So if you do get too ambitious with it, it can lead to some wheel hopping or just a loss of grip, because the car is just so light in the back end when cresting that hill. And we're just a few corners away now from that passing point that I was talking about at Rivazza. Here's another gnarly chicane here at Variante Alta. Very technical corner, but it leads you down into Rivazza, so a good exit out of there can lead you down the hill. You can move out to the left side as we bend around to the right and then make a dive bomb maneuver down here into turn 13. That's where I think is a good spot, other than the front stretch, and you don't have to deal with the narrow chicane like you do if you try to make a pass down into turn 2 or 3.
Yeah, you can lick the stamp and send it, and here we are watching some battles as well. Lee desperately trying to hold on to his position. Kruger's gonna look down to the inside, and he's making it down to the inside towards Tamburello as well. Who will break later? Will it be Kruger or will it be Lee? It is Kruger, and it is a relatively easy pass as well. It looked like there was a shade of cooperation in there as well. Lee didn't want to get stuck into a long battle, but here he is gonna try under Villeneuve. No, it's gonna be Kruger defending his position into Villeneuve actually, and is able to hold on to it as well. So he's now in a 6th place. The problem for Kruger is that he's 1.6 seconds behind Mark File in 5th. So he's gonna have to either really get the going on, or he's gonna be in a lot of trouble, because it's Lee, it's Peterson, and it's ultra fast Roy Brown at the back of his pack. Oh, and we have a spinner around as well, and that's Oliver Hartley. Number 17, who was starting this lap in 16th, is now all the way down to 20th place, and that looks like the exit of Villeneuve. And unless I'm much mistaken, Kenny, that might be a similar incident to what we saw in lap number 1, and we have another spinner around as well. That's Brian Hoskins, who's lost it at Piratella. That's an unusual place. Maybe another driver who was taking it a little bit too liberal with the AstroTurf and the track limits.
Yeah, it looks like with Oliver Hartley's spin, it looks like he grabbed a little too much curb on the exit of Villeneuve. He hit that little turtle that I was talking about earlier, really upset the car and just kind of grabbed it and sent him to the right side. A good job locking it down. He did hit the tire barriers on the right side, but he will be able to continue. I did not see the second incident yet, but yeah, again, curbs are going to be a big talking point here tonight. And you know, now we're at the point where cold tires is not really a factor. We're 7 laps in. These tires are definitely heated up. But now, how aggressive our driver's going to be with the runoff and with the curbs, that could definitely play into more of the incidents as we go far along into this race. And also, as drivers begin to race here harder and harder at the end, as we're taking a look at the replay of Hartley's spin, you see there he goes, he grabs that curb, you see the car, right side of the car hop up in the air a little bit, and he plows into the outside barrier there. But yeah, the longer we go into this race, the more aggressive drivers are going to get, and they're going to be less willing to give up spots. As we take a look at another spin here, and that was another case of getting onto the grass, into the braking, and just sends the car around. Luckily, a lot of runoff here, so no harm, no foul. He'll continue on. But yeah, this track's pretty treacherous. You can use up some of the limits here, but it'll make you pay if you overstep its bounds.
So, I mean, you're from Michigan, right? So you would know about Canadian cheese, Canadian geese.
Yes, yep, we got plenty of them.
Yeah, so no wonder you're using the phrase "no harm, no foul" so often, because those are some aggressive animals. And speaking of duck-like animals, it's interesting that you call it the turtle, because I've heard those referred to sausage curbs. I've heard those referred to as the sleeping policeman. The lovely child, the love child, has many names, as we say. And I personally like the name Launchpad for them, because not only do they act as launchpads, especially for the open-wheeled cars, but also they make you often look like Launchback McWuck, who is known for his less than safe piloting antics, so to speak. And we are watching the leading duo here with Eric Luke and Tommy Brisson. They've been absolutely on a tear here today, getting away from everybody else in a class of their own. 6 seconds back to Bofill in pin number 3, who himself has had a quiet, he's had an understated, but a very good, very solid race. Rafael Bofill, he hasn't been that active this season. He's in fact started only 2 races, and that means he's only in 26th position in points, but he's gonna have quite a haul here from tonight if he can hold on to this position. But what I'm watching here, Kenny, is that Luke's impressive start and that gap of over 1 second, he wasn't able to hold on to it. Brisson's been steadily improving his lap times as the race has progressed, and now, with them having a bit of a gap behind them, they can actually start battling without having to worry too much about what's coming from behind them and losing that gap, because it's always a double-edged sword. On one hand, you want to take the lead if you're Brisson. If you're Tommy Brisson, you absolutely want to make a move for the lead, but you also have to consider the drivers behind you. As in, you have to consider the worst-case scenario, which is that if you lose that battle, you're going to end up second as of now. But if you spend too much time battling, you're going to allow the other drivers to catch up to you. You might drop down to 3rd, 4th, even 5th position. So it's always a bit of a balancing act. But right now I'm looking at these two, and despite his rather lackluster last sector, I'm gonna say it's advantage Brisson at this point in time.
Yeah, Brisson, I've been keeping an eye on him, and he fell back to about a second behind Eric Luke early on, but has closed in and been around a half a second back for the laps after that, and he's kind of just hanging there. And I almost wonder, because we're getting closer and closer to the point where drivers are going to start making their pit stop, if he can maybe pit a little bit earlier than the leader and get a clean track to deal with, and maybe be able to leapfrog him based on his pit stop. That's one way of doing it without having to actually pass on track. Or if Luke decides to pit a little early, stay out later, do the opposite of the leader, try to make it interesting. We have something that we'll have to keep an eye on here as we go into the second half of this race. We're about 1 minute in time, or actually we are past halfway with this being a 35-minute race. So we're 19 minutes in. So yeah, pit strategy is going to start happening here.
Yeah, just a small correction. We have 18 minutes still remaining. We're 17 minutes in, so not quite yet halfway, but you were close enough. I'll allow it you. It's within the margin of error. Oh, another mistake at Aqua Minerale. Such a beautiful name for a corner. Mark File this time. Maybe showcasing his team name a little bit there. But certainly not the first driver to make a mistake at Aqua Minerale. Beautiful corner name. Sadly, it means mineral water. People always say Aqua Minerale. It sounds so beautiful. It just means there's a river going next to it, or there's a little bit of a stream rather, as this is in the beautiful Italian countryside. So some battles going on here. I believe this is Roy Brown, who has now caught up to Kruger. So this is going to be the battle for 5th position, and Roy Brown going to look to the inside, make himself another position. Is he going to be able to pull this off nice and easy? I think so. At least he's able to brake later, and yep, get into position away. Will he outbrake himself? Maybe a little bit compromised, but that's not going to allow Kruger to come back. So I think Roy Brown will be safe coming towards Villeneuve corner. Yeah, earlier on, Kenny, going back to that discussion about the pit stops, the undercut versus the overcut, as it's called in racing, pitting earlier versus pitting later. Now, for those who have watched Formula 1, you know that undercut is usually the way to go. You get fresh tires, you get a fresh set of tires, you're going to get faster lap times, but here you don't have a tire change, so on paper, the overcut is usually the faster plan, and that's what's usually the one that ends up working out. But the exception is that if Brisson is able to pit early and find himself a nice gap, then we might see the undercut actually working out. But there is a heavy risk involved in that one, and that is, of course, if you pit early, you might end up into a pack of drivers who have not yet pitted, and that's gonna cost you potentially quite a lot of time. And since we're talking about the pit stops, I believe a couple of drivers have already done that.
Yeah, so I did see File and Hoskins both pitted, so that's another spot that Roy Brown was able to gain for that one. But yeah, drivers starting to make their pit stops here. Quite a few drivers still yet to pit, though, and obviously the two leaders have yet to come in as well that we've been keeping an eye on. But yeah, you nailed it right on the head, Ozzy, with the strategy. Basically, you know, you can pit early, pit as soon as you're in your fuel window, but you're going to have to take more fuel, or you can go as long as the fuel lasts, and then have a shorter pit stop because you won't have to put in as much fuel. But you need to calculate that right, and every second used up on the pit lane by taking fuel is definitely going to matter. So these guys might have to do a little bit of math if they're going to do a partial fill here to the end. But yeah, so far the leaders kind of just have in a chess match here, not really showing their hand quite yet, and it's been an intriguing battle so far. Yeah,
and mathematics during the course of the race. Now, these days, a lot of drivers have a bunch of different software, or rather a bunch of options, different options that they can use for software that can calculate that for you. You have it usually open on a fourth monitor in a triple screen setup, or just your phone screen or whatever. You have it next to you that's going to basically calculate to you, okay, this is how long the race is going to last, this is how much fuel you will need to make it to the end, and that's usually giving you 1 or 2 liters of a margin in case you end up spending more fuel than the software has calculated so far. But the one big variable to all of this is the race length, because this is a timed race, and we have a little bit of a nice line from Luke. I wonder at first if that's going to be a fake pit stop NASCAR style or not, but it wasn't, so Luke is still continuing on. But yeah, so it's a timed race, 35 minutes. It's not a set amount of laps, Kenny. And that means the mathematics get even more complicated because you're gonna have to figure out, oh, is it gonna be X amount of laps remaining or Y amount of laps remaining, and especially in races where the lap times are really close, if it's within a couple of seconds, you essentially either hedge a bet and take a couple of liters less, save maybe half a second on the pit stop, which just might net you a position, or you're gonna play it safe.
Right, for sure. I mean, the longer you're in the pit, in your pit lane, the longer your pit stop's going to be. You may, lose spots by doing that, but you're going to need to play it safe enough to at least make it to the end. I actually lost a race here in the GTE cars by running out of fuel on the last lap, so I know how it feels. But some of the front runners have just taken a pit stop. They Bullfill, Hellberg was in. I believe Peter Lee came in as well, maybe even Dave Peterson as well. But yeah, I did notice Bullfill was the first one that I noticed who was in the top 5 to make their pit stop. But again, still the leaders have not pitted. And Roy Brown, look at him, he's up to 3rd. Granted, it is by pit strategy here, but I think this is good for Brown. I think it's good for him to stay out as long as he can. Now he has a lot of open track, as you're seeing on screen right now. I think he should go as hard as he can for as long as he can, pit at the last minute, and then kind of see where he shuffles out. He may be able to lead the 2 drivers. Okay, leaders are coming in here. Both of them coming in, and Roy Brown coming in too. So top 3 drivers right now in the pit stop.
Yep, and we'll see how it goes. Will either of them miss their pit stall? That's going to be of utmost importance to see. Oh, and I think that was Brisson. No, they were just so close to. No, yeah, he did miss his pit stall. So Tommy Brisson in 2nd place is gonna lose about 3 or 4 seconds in his stop, and that's gonna allow Roy Brown to catch potentially, well, not right up to him, but getting closer. Here we see Brisson getting away. He's lost a couple of seconds to Luke. Luke is already accelerating away from the end of the pit lane. He's gonna be winning so much time here. Look at this. Tommy Brisson is now 3.5. He's almost 4 seconds behind Roy Brown, getting away nice and easy as well. He is about gonna be around 15 seconds behind the leader potentially. No, it's actually gonna be just 13 seconds, yeah, behind the leader. So at this point in time, it's gonna be Roy Brown in 5th place. It's gonna be Eric Luke in the lead, but here you saw the comparison. So it's gonna be Brisson losing 5 seconds in his pit stop. And that's by a silly error, essentially braking a little bit too late into your pit stall. And you're not doing very fast. You're doing around, what, 40 or 50 miles an hour once you come into your stop, but it's still very deceiving that the car doesn't stop instantly. It's gonna take a little bit of time, and you might have hot tires, you might have a number of issues that's gonna prevent you from braking right on time, but ultimately that is, I believe, gonna cost Tommy Brisson the chance to fight for a race win here.
Yeah, I think that was just a classic case of, Tommy Brisson knew that him and Luke are very even, and he's thinking, what can I do to gain some kind of advantage? And so he decided to push the limit. Ooh, we do have a spin that was right in front of Roy Brown. Leif Hellberg took a little spin. But anyways, going back to the pit stops, Brisson had to push, he was pushing the limit, trying to gain any little bit of advantage that he could, because he knew that the pit stops were going to be pretty similar. But it is a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit here, and he just pushed the limit too much. And granted, too, with Eric Luke being the pit stall right in front of him could be a little bit disorienting, because he probably drove through Brisson's pit stall on the way to it. But and the pit stalls are not the most defined in the world here at Imola, but again, like you said, just an error on the driver's part there, and he pays 5 seconds for it. How about the recovery from Roy Brown, though? He's back up to 4th place after his early mishaps, and who knows, he may be able to get a podium here.
Yeah, and I mean also Leif Hellberg, who we just saw spinning out, he's sitting 15th in points. He hasn't had excellent results so far. He's had some good ones, but he hasn't had a podium yet this season. Has one retirement as well from round number 4, so he was gonna haul a lot of points from here with that potential top 5 finish, which has now turned into an 8th place, and he's got Mark File as well as Baron Glover behind him, so it's not even assured that he's gonna finish this race in 8th. He might be dropping down to 9th, he might be dropping down to 10th, so Leif Hellberg is really he has to be kicking himself, and not with a ButtKicker either. That's a good thing if you're kicking yourself with a ButtKicker, but he's gonna be hitting himself over that mistake, which was an unforced error. But we've seen a lot of them so far in this race, so you know, slow and steady, sometimes it can even win you the race. We'll see how this battle develops. It's between Bowden, Hellberg, File and Glover so far. All of those cars in the same pictures, and they are having a little bit of a tussle over a couple of points here on the bottom end of top 10. Still good positions, mind you, and a lot of interesting drivers here as well. A lot of drivers who we may be expected to do a little bit better than they have so far. Bern Glover especially, he's had a run of good results so far this season, podium as well, so he was someone I expected to maybe be in top 5, but he's in 10th place right now at the back of this pack. Imola, it's a cruel mistress, and it can be a cruel mistress, and it is the kind of track, kind of like a Circuit of the Americas is another one of those which some drivers just love and some drivers just hate, and if you hate it, you're gonna be way down in the back.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Circuit of the Americas is a track that I don't care for, but you do have to go in with an open mind and optimistic, because if you're entered in a race there, you have no choice anyway. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to Don Bowden, though. He's up 6 spots, 13th to 7th tonight, and he's in that battle that we've been talking about. Also, Dave Peterson up 5 spots, 10th to 5th. That's pretty impressive for him. But again, the top 4 have been pretty much running away with it, and but I'm not so sure. Oh, and if you go to Tommy Brisson, he has slid off the track and into the gravel trap, the same corner that we just talked about that Leif Hillberg had dealt with. Yes, he just straddled the curbs and slid off, just as many drivers we have seen happen.
Yeah, and we see a replay of it, and is he gonna be going too far to the left? Yeah, so that happens so easily because the entry to Acqua Minerale, it's almost flat out. You're gonna be just turning it in really fast, aggressive, and as you're turning it in, you're gonna be starting to brake right after the apex of the first bend. So it's a turning and braking, and this is a middle-engined car, the Ferrari, so the back end is gonna get really light anyway, and once you're braking, oh, and we have another car off the track, and that is Jacob Kruger, and he is off and well and truly has retired from the race. Wow, a lot of drama for our VR driver, for our camera darling here in this race. So that's gonna be him off, and that's gonna elevate a couple of drivers up some places here in the later goings of this race. I almost wonder, Kenny, if the tire wear is now gonna start to be an issue for these drivers, because you have a lot more fuel in the tank than you had before. This is not right after the pit stops, this couple of laps after it, but tire wear and the track at Imola with a lot of fast corners, you mentioned early on, it's a fast track. I wonder if some drivers are just simply gonna run out of the rubber.
This is a good point. After the pit stops, with a full fuel load or relatively full, the cars are going to handle the worst that they will all day long, and these cars do develop a push, especially with the fixed setup that these guys are running. They will develop a push, and that's a high-speed corner. You're trying to go as hard as you can into that slight bend before the Acqua Minerale, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just a case of guys pushing a little too hard or pushing past the limits of the tires in the car, and pushing out too wide, and by then you're pretty well done for if you straddle that curb, as we've seen, over about 5 times already in this race. So, and again, that was the same thing that happened to Kruger, and he ended up blasting into a tire barrier and had to retire from the race. So it's been a calamity corner tonight.
It has, and it is a difficult place. As we mentioned earlier, it is a difficult place, so no wonder they've had issues. I've seen drivers all the way up to the World Championship level who has struggled at Acqua Minerale, so it's no wonder that these drivers are struggling there as well. It is one that catches them out very easily. Bowden, Hellberg and File are fighting for the 7th place at the moment. We just saw earlier how Bowden made a couple of mistakes at the exit of the corners, maybe getting a little bit sideways, out of shape, and that's never a good thing, because when you're leading in a pack, that's a precarious position he's in. You gotta, of course, maximize your pace, but you also have to watch in the mirrors. You mentioned earlier how it can be disorientating, and it absolutely is. So he's gonna have to focus on his optimal racing line, but also watch out for any dive bombs, any moves from behind, what's gonna happen behind him. So he's gonna have to split his attention. Now, Auden has done a good job of that so far early on in this lap. He's recovered from his earlier error and he's driving a little bit away from Hellberg and from File. And still, we still have 3.5 minutes left in this race, couple of laps left, so anything can happen. But at least in the first sector, he's looking very good. Now, I want to see how he handles the exit here. Variante Alta, and behind him, it's actually File looking for an overtake at Hellberg. Hellberg's going to have to take it defensive. You're not going to make it around pair File, but he might be able to get a good exit on the run down to Rivatsa, and that is one place where you can absolutely lick the stamp and send it as the clouds move in front of the sun and make the track temperature a little bit cooler. It's gonna provide a little bit of a relief to those tires, but not too much. Still, Bowden from Hellberg from File, and we have Glover as well trying to catch back up now.
One thing to keep in mind here with just a few laps left is, you do have a 13x limit before you get a penalty, but if you have some X's in the bank here and you're not going, as long as you don't get any slowdowns, I would totally expect drivers to be using a little more curbs here the last few laps, or using a little more runoff to get better runs into and out of the corners. I mean, if you have X's to play with, you might as well take advantage of them. So these drivers here, this battle that's going on, these guys are using a decent amount of runoff. Haven't really seen too much being used, but that's definitely a tactic I would be using out there. If I got X's that I have not used up, I'd at least use a couple here on the last few laps and push the car to its limit.
Absolutely. It reminds me back in the olden days when iRacing had the 24 hours of Spa. And that race traditionally didn't have an incident limit because it was an endurance race and it was a 24-hour event, and especially with the GD cars, a lot of times the faster line wasn't necessarily within the track limits. So you take around 5 or 6 or 7 incidents per lap. And by the end of 24 hours, you're going to be driving for 5 or 6 hours for your team. By the end of 24 hours, we saw a lot of pro drivers who had to work their safety rating up from license C or license D all the way back to pro for next week's race. So it was kind of hilarious, but that issue has now since been fixed. We now have incident limits, and I think overall those are a good thing. But look at that pack bunching up as we head towards what will be the last lap of the race, very potentially. Actually, it is nip and tuck. It is nip and tuck because Eric Luke is around 20 seconds ahead of these guys. And it was around 1 minute forward left, so we'll have to wait and see. And oh, we have another spinner as well. That is Brian Hoskins going around with the 520. So that's not his first spin of the race, but we'll go back to the fight between Bowden and Hellberg and File. And it is still Bowden from Hellberg and from File. But Bowden has been gradually starting to struggle here on this last lap. And that means I think Hellberg is smelling blood in the water. And he is like a shark attacking.
Yeah, this will be an interesting last lap here. Kind of a train of cars going on here, and Bowden is definitely... Oh, the leader
Luke.
is off. Luke is
Eric
off.
Luke is off at Piratella.
There goes Brisson.
That's Brisson, and that's Bofill, and that's Brown going past him. Oh my God, he's made a mistake on the last possible moment. What drama here at Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari, and the fight for second place is raging on as well. Bofill and Brown, and they're side by side heading into the Alta chicane at the top of the track. Who's gonna be ahead? Brown's still alongside him, and Brown made the move. He's ahead of Bofill. He's all the way up to the second place. Bofill third and Luke is in fourth, and this is the final lap. We are out of time, and that means Tommy Brisson is gonna steal it right at the last moment. He is at Rivazza, first apex, second apex. What will happen to the second place? It's Roy Brown currently, but Bofill can still take it with a good exit. Is he gonna maximize it? Yes, he will, but it's not gonna be enough. Tommy Brisson wins the Ferrari fixed here at Imola, and he's gonna take the championship lead away from Eric Luke in the most dramatic of fashions. Wow.
That was insane there. I don't know if we can take a look back at Eric Luke's incident there, but he got his right side onto the turf just before Piratella, and just whipped it around. And again, it's just the narrowest of margins, and iRacing's a little bit funny about that. If you just touch the turf under braking with these GT cars, it just sends you around. And really, in all respect, a good recovery from Luke, considering didn't hit anything, didn't hit any drivers as he came back on. But devastating for the 709 car in the last lap.
You have a 10-second lead. It's the last lap. Why would you play with the track limits? But then again, that's a racing driver. He's gonna be a racing driver all the way to the end, and he's unfortunate as well because a lot of times you can make a 360, you can recover from that within a relatively short span of time. But he made a 270, he was pointed the wrong way. Then when he turned the car around, he was no longer on the tarmac, on the runoff area, but he was instead on the gravel, so he had to wait when he accelerated. He lost a couple of extra seconds with that one as well, and that all means that it is going to be Tommy Brisson winning the race here at Imola at Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari, despite his mishap at the pit stop. And it's Eric Luke in the 4th place. He was momentarily shown as the winner. Nope, he's gonna be at the 4th place. Roy Brown took home the 2nd position after a brilliant recovery drive, and Rafael Bofill is gonna round out the podium. As we mentioned earlier, Eric Luke is 4th. Dave Peterson's gonna round out their top 5 with Peter Lee in 6th. In that battle for 7th position, it was Don Bowden who was able to hold off Leif Hellberg and Mark Feil, as well as Baron Glover, who is gonna be 10th.
11th place belongs to Charles Sumner, followed by Pim Luth, who had his issues at the beginning of the race, finishes 12th place. 13th goes to Ryan Burdick, followed by Larry Krupp in 14th. 15th goes to Glenn Vanko. 16th is Oliver Hartley. 17th goes to Eric Evans. Brian Hoskins, who spun near the end of the race, is 18th. 19th goes to Sean Keeley, and Blake Ziti ends up 20th, the last driver on the lead lap.
Yep, and we have 4 drivers left to go as well. Danny Flaccioli, Jacob Kruger, Matthew Plante, and David Hebert, who all have been classified either as multiple laps down or retired from the 7th. So only 3 casualties really here at Imola. It was a relatively clean race. All the mistakes we saw, they were smaller, but one of the most crucial mistakes, it happened on the last lap. We are now joined by our race winner, Tommy Brisson. Tommy, first of all, congratulations for the win. What were your thoughts when you arrived to the Piratella corner on the last lap and there was Eric Luke pointing the wrong way?
I was wondering what happened. He was like 10 seconds in front of me, so I was sure he was driving slow and have an easy win. So I don't know what happened to him.
Well, he spun around on the entry of the corner, and he wasn't the only one out of you two. You have a tight championship battle going on. You made a mistake at the pit stop, he made a mistake on the last lap, and you ended up winning the race. So, Imola, was it tough knowing that there's just 1 point between you two heading into this round? Did it give some extra pressure for you to perform?
Yes, I think so, because in the practice I was almost a second faster than in qualification. So same thing for Eric also. So I think that maybe the stress was there, and we were slower because of that.
Indeed, but ultimately it was the victory for you, and that means you are now tied, I believe, with Eric Luke when it comes to race wins this season. So how are the last couple of rounds looking for you? We are still having 4 rounds to go in this championship. It's absolutely neck and neck between you two. What do you need to do in order to beat Eric Luke for the championship this year?
Again, I think I really need to practice more my pit stops. What happened tonight is that we pitted together, and I was not able to see my stop sign well. It was like over his car, so that's why I missed it. But maybe next time I'll try to pit 1 lap before him or 1 lap after him, depending where we are in the race. But I really need to work on the pit stops for sure.
Let's hope that goes all swimmingly, and best of luck for next week as well. Tommy, here was Tommy Brisson winning the race. If you'd like to give a shout out or have anything else to add, then feel free to do so.
Yeah, thank you guys for your amazing work. And my friends who are watching me probably tonight, maybe my friend Geoff and my brother Steve. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Tommy, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So here we had Tommy Brison winning this race, and next up it's gonna be Kenny talking to our second place finisher.
Yeah. Roy, that was a fantastic run for you tonight, but talk about the beginning of the race. You made just a slight error and spun out into Acqui Minerale. What was your thinking or mindset beyond that point, knowing that you lost about 6-7 spots there early on?
Oh man, so that turn was probably the most challenging for me all practice long. That's exactly what I didn't want to do, is get my right tires on the AstroTurf, or left tires, and spin it out. So that was pretty disappointing, but my teammates Glenn and Ryan kept on telling me keep my head down and start picking off drivers as I move forward. So got pretty quiet there, just focused on hitting all my entrances and exits perfect. I was overdriving the car about halfway through the race, and then just kind of slowed down a little bit, and I started picking up speed, especially those last 3 laps. I was starting to catch up to, I think it was, Pim in front of me. So I was just focusing on just really good entrances and good exits, and trying not to spin the tires and spin the car again. So yeah, it was a fun race. It was a good drive. I was super happy with the results. Going into this race, I didn't think I was going to have the pace, but ended up getting second place. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, you were definitely not the only driver who struggled with that corner. A bunch of drivers went off right there. But going through the race, did your pit strategy, was that kind of determined by the leaders? Because you did pit on the same lap as them. Was that your plan the whole way through, or did you kind of adapt based on what the leaders did and where your positioning was?
No, I had open air, so I was just trying to run fast laps and ran my car dry. So I had to pit that lap. So I think the leaders were doing the same thing as me with open air. It was just a disappointment, spinning on that third lap, and knowing that I have the pace at the end of the race now. Look at how close it was for me at the end. If I could have just kept it on the track at the beginning, I would have had maybe a win. So yeah.
Well, regardless, it was a fantastic run for you, a really good recovery for you for second place. Anybody you'd like to thank for the run tonight?
Oh yeah, I'd like to thank first off my teammates Ryan and Glenn. It's fun practicing. They helped me get focused and tune in my car. Jeff was our crew chief this week, so that was pretty good. And then my mom and stepdad, they usually watch the race every week after. And then you guys put on a great show. It's fun to watch the replays throughout the week. I do share them with my friends and family, and they get a kick out of the racing.
Well, that was our second place driver, Roy Brown. Thanks for talking with us, Roy, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
So that was Kenny Kibbe talking to Roy Brown in the second place, and now we are heading to a small break, but don't go anywhere because it's gonna be PRL GT Amateur Series from the most legendary of race venues, Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, right after this break.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced SimRacing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much going to be a turnkey. So he's going to press start on his computer, and right after we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have